Here are prison guards that were caught with inmates. How would you stop inmates and guards falling for each other? Let us know below. Number 10. Kelly Ann McDade. Kelly, 31, was a correctional officer working at a Young Offenders Institute when she met 21-year-old Nelson Delgado. Delgado was described as dangerous and a high risk when he was imprisoned for several months in Kelly's care. According to Kelly, it was love at first sight, and they soon began having intimate relations. They were together secretly for several months before disaster struck. Kelly fell pregnant. Covering it up as quickly as she could, she booked a trip abroad, and then upon her return claimed her pregnancy was from a fun tryst while she was out of country. Their son would be 9 months old before Kelly was caught on CCTV sneaking into Nelson's cell during the night. Then, upon raiding her home, authorities discovered several texts between her and Nelson in which they called each other husband and wife and talked about their life once Delgado was free, planning to raise their son together. It was also revealed that Kelly had helped sneak in 3 phones. She was sentenced to 18 months for the smuggling and 12 months for improper conduct. She'll be free after a total of 30 months. Nelson will likely be held until he is 25. Number 9. Allison Sharples. Allison may be one of the strangest cases on this list. The 47-year-old had fallen in love with an inmate at her prison. The grandmother met gangster Marvin Berkeley after he was incarcerated for assault and substance charges and seemed to be utterly enraptured with him. She was found to have love letters from him after being caught with the most damning piece of evidence. Her handbag was searched as she left the prison one day, only for the screener to find a shocking item: a syringe filled with Marvin's genetic material. She claimed she had intended to use it in a similar manner to a turkey baster so she could have Marvin's child. She was sentenced to 9 months in prison, perhaps just enough time. Number 8. Vicky White. For 16 years, Vicky White was a model sheriff's deputy running the jail in Lauderdale County, Alabama. She was closely trusted by the sheriff and her colleagues and was generally regarded as a highly capable and responsible officer. However, in April of 2022, she would betray the trust of her colleagues and help murderer Casey White to escape from the prison she had kept secure for nearly 2 decades. The two had developed a romantic relationship, and though they had never made physical contact in the prison to anyone else's knowledge, they did spend a lot of time texting and calling one another. Just hours before the escape, Vicky told her colleagues she would be taking Casey to the courthouse for a mental evaluation. This was a clear violation of the prison rules, however, Vicky was allowed to leave with Casey. The pair immediately fled and ditched the patrol car for another plateless getaway car. Vicky, it turned out, had sold her home for half of its market value to buy the getaway car and provisions to help Casey escape. As the prison was made aware of the escape, several inmates came forward to reveal the true romantic depth of the relationship. The duo swapped cars a total of 4 times before eventually being chased by police in a gray Cadillac. As police closed in, the Cadillac hit a tree and crashed. Casey was apprehended, only slightly wounded, but Vicky had taken her own life as the police approached the wrecked car. Lauderdale Sheriff Singleton says Casey will never see the light of day again. Number 7. Erica Whittingham. Following the tragic dissolution of her 11-year marriage, Erica Whittingham, a custody officer at HMP Dovegate, began to be approached by one Michael Seddon, a violent offender imprisoned on fear of his danger to society. Initially, Erica didn't reciprocate his advances, understanding how wrong it was. But after some time of finding solace from her rapidly changing life with him, she began to develop feelings. Seddon was transferred to HMP Sudbury, but the two maintained contact with Erica, frequently booking hotels to go and visit him. HMP Sudbury was an open prison and so had less security. Seddon would convince Erica to help him, and October 1st, 2019, he would jump the fence and flee in a getaway car driven by Erica. No one found out about Erica's involvement for quite some time, and the pair met up no fewer than 8 times at various hotels where Erica got Seddon clothes and cash. This continued until during a brief lull in their meetings, Seddon met another woman, fell in love, and abandoned Erica. When Erica found out, she was furious and dropped an anonymous tip that got Seddon caught and then turned herself in. She has been made to serve a 3-year prison sentence with some fines, but will not suffer worse due to her honesty and clarity with the legal authorities. Number 6. Sukhpreet Singh. Singh's story is a complex and confusing one. She began working as a prison guard at Toronto's South Detention Centre and there met convict and thief Tatum Ogden. The two started a chaotic and passionate relationship that they struggled to hide from the guards. Initially, Sukhpreet was taken aback by the attention, even complaining to other guards that Tatum was calling her personal number. But after some time, the two became very close. Tatum was in prison for robbery and assault, but wouldn't be serving much time, and so the pair decided to simply wait. fate. However, Singh would be found out and suspended from duty. When Tatum was released, Sukhpreet allowed him to move into her home and allowed him the use of her mother's Jeep as his getaway car. While Singh was working as an exotic dancer, Ogden would go on to commit dozens of robberies, including from Singh's father's restaurant, all using her mother's car and most of the time with her acting as getaway driver. When police began to close in, they arrived at her apartment and confronted them both. However, Singh flashed her law enforcement ID and covered for Ogden using a fake name. The pair then went on the run to Huntsville, but were eventually tracked down and captured. She is now incarcerated at the Vanier Center for Women in Milton and will spend the next several years there serving time for her roles in at least 2 robberies. Number 5. Chloe Jones. Chloe Jones had only just started a career as a corrections officer in Britain's HMP Alt course when she met the man who would end her life as she knew it. She had only been working for a few months when she met Philip King at the prison and started communicating. Once the relationship began, it was fiery, with the pair exchanging over 3,000 texts in just 46 days on illegal contraband burner phones. Chloe wasn't involved with King's escape from prison, which he managed on his own. However, she did harbor him at her home for several months while police searched for the fugitive, even going so far as to directly lie to police to cover for him using a false name to keep his identity secret. Following a botched burglary, King and Jones fled from police in a car and led them on a pursuit through Liverpool, at the end of which they would both be arrested. Initially, Jones covered for King to the police. However, after a second day of interrogations, she admitted everything to them. King would be sentenced to an additional 36 months in prison on top of his previous sentence, and Jones would be sentenced to 15 months in prison. Number 4. Nancy Gonzalez. Nancy was working on the death row in Brooklyn when she met Ronald Wilson, an inmate on death row for taking the lives of 2 undercover police officers during a weapons sting gone wrong. The two began to talk and reportedly fell in love. Gonzalez was intent on keeping Wilson free and was actively working to delay his execution to give them more time together. She would become pregnant and give birth to his child, which they named Justice. Gonzalez was sentenced to a year and a day in prison, while Wilson really can't be given a worse sentence. However, it is possible he will meet his fateful date more quickly due to the controversy. Nancy still attests to being deeply in love with Wilson and will raise their child to remember him well once she is out of prison. Number 3. Lawana Sharp. After a routine monitoring check of the prison's payment service JPay uncovered a false account, prison authorities began to investigate the guards at Graceville Correctional Facility. What they found was shocking. They revealed that Lawana Sharp, a correctional officer at the prison, had been having a secret relationship with an unnamed inmate for several months and had been using the alias Candy Williams to receive payment for smuggling contraband. The couple engaged in indecent acts in numerous public areas of the prison, resulting in numerous charges for Lawana. Worse still, she had been smuggling in contraband on her person for her inmate lover and numerous of his friends. Over the course of 67 payments, she was paid over $12,000 and would smuggle in over 600 cigars alone. Sharp has been charged with more than 70 crimes, including 67 counts of unlawful compensation, unlawful interactions with an inmate, and smuggling charges. Sharp received payments from inmates' families and friends, and it's likely would have expanded her operations given how much she was being given in return. It's likely she will be put in prison for a life sentence with parole, though sadly for Sharp, she won't be imprisoned with her inmate lover. Number 2. Joyce Mitchell. Joyce Mitchell was a tailor at the Clinton Correctional Facility and was married with children. She would become the target of a seduction and escape plot made by the 2 murderers David Sweat and Richard Matt. Sweat was in prison for a kidnapping and double homicide, while Matt was in prison for robbery and murder in the first degree. Joyce was deeply respected in the community and was even twice elected to be the town's tax collector. Starting by asking for small favors before ramping up their requests, Sweat and Matt ingratiated themselves with Mitchell and got to know her. She was especially close with Matt, and it's believed she continued the relationship partially due to the thrill that flirting with danger brought. Eventually, she would smuggle in hacksaw blades, files, and other tools in frozen meat patties, which allowed Sweat and Matt to carve their way through the brick wall of their cell as well as through a steam pipe in order to break into unsecured maintenance corridors. They eventually entered the sewer system and popped up out of a manhole cover some distance from the prison. Joyce was supposed to drive them to freedom, but had severe chest pains that day that prevented her from aiding the two. Another guard was also found guilty of supplying tools and information to the pair for their escape. Sweat and Matt would go on the run, which would culminate in Matt's demise as he and Sweat were caught in police fire. Sweat would be wounded but would survive. For her role in the plot, Joyce was sentenced to 5 years in prison and 2 years probation, along with $80,000 in fines for the damages. Number 1. Chanel Eichelberger. Eichelberger was a correctional officer at the Manning Reentry/Work Release Center in South Carolina. The prison is a male-only minimum security facility holding 516 inmates. On December 21st, 2022, Eichelberger was recorded by an inmate engaging in illicit acts and breaking numerous codes of conduct. It took several days for the video to be circulated to the point it was seen by prison authorities, but when it was, Chanel was rapidly apprehended. Arrested on January 6th, Chanel has since been charged with up to a year in prison and a $1,000 fine. As she only committed a misdemeanor crime for carnal misconduct with an inmate, she will not see the intense prison time that some other guards-turned-lovers suffer. Though she will be forced to vacate her position as a public servant, she will have an opportunity to redeem herself and pursue a career beyond law enforcement. Those are prison guards that were caught with inmates. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and share, and be sure to follow for more.